Russ, shy? No? Silent? Silent. Stay. Stay. He's very English. He's very English. And he went to Eton. Good morning. I'm Pete and I'm here. It's a cold January day at the Mount Moresby Adventure Camp, and I'm going to do an introduction to kayaking today. So we're going to look at the boat, the kayak, the bits of kit you need to get out on the water, how to be safe, and some tips and tricks on paddling technique and how to get in and out of your kayak. Which one do you think is nicer for the video, blue or grey? I think blue's kind of a bit. Boat and lift it that way. So we've got a kayak and now we need to move it down to the water. Sounds like a small thing, but before you go and pick up your kayak by the handy toggles here, just check the condition of the cord. If you go to pick up an empty boat or partially loaded boat and the cord is not in good shape, you can end up dropping your boat and doing quite a bit of damage to it. So I like to actually get my arm right the way underneath the kayak and lift it that way. And obviously, when you get old, this becomes more important, but lift with your legs, not with your back. Okay, and we're off. Okay, you compose your shot while I grab a paddle and stuff. Okay, so here we have a kayak. This is about 17 feet long. It's a plastic single kayak. I mentioned that it's made of plastic because you have a couple of options with a kayak. You have fiberglass and plastic. Plastic is very durable, but once it's damaged, it's harder to repair. Fiberglass is very strong, but maybe not quite as forgiving as plastic, but you have the advantage that you can repair it if you do put a hole in it. I want to point out a couple of key things about the kayak. The kayak's buoyancy is created by what are referred to as bulkheads. So from about here to the bow of the kayak, you have a sealed chamber. And I say it's sealed. It's only sealed if the hatch is properly closed. So if you're going out paddling for a couple of days, you're taking your tent, you're taking some food, all of that gear is going to go in these compartments. And once you're fully loaded and you're getting ready to launch your kayak, it's really important that you do an inspection of these hatch covers because they are what creates the seal and to ensure that this front compartment is watertight. Charlotte, you can see, is obviously a keen sea kayaker. She's paying rapt attention to my introduction this morning. Okay, so we talked about the hatches at the bow and the stern of the boat. Bow and stern. Bow is the front, stern is the rear of the boat or the back of the boat. I'm going to talk about the cockpit just quickly here. Now the cockpit is where the paddler sits, quite obviously, and depending on the boat you're in, they vary in terms of the comfort that they provide. You're going to have a little seat here with a backrest that you can adjust to suit, but the most important bit about the cockpit is actually what are referred to as the foot pegs. Now the foot pegs are what you use to control the kayak's steering system, and the steering system is a cable operated rudder. Okay, so essentially, once we launch our boat and we get out there and the boat has some forward momentum, we can operate the rudder with our feet, pushing our left foot forward to turn the boat rather to the left, and our right foot forward to turn the boat to the right. And that steerage is really handy. So before we jump into our boat, before we launch our boat even, we need to get in and adjust the foot pegs so that they work for us, because this boat here would be able to happily accommodate myself, but also a smaller paddler and perhaps even a bigger paddler too. But there's some adjustments that need to be made to make that happen. Before we get onto the adjustment, I want to just mention one other thing. These rudders are cable operated, like I mentioned, and so these are another area we need to just check for wear. Obviously, a rudder cable that's frayed or even broken won't do us much good. So we give a quick visual inspection of the rudder cables. Okay, I'm going to jump in and I'm just going to talk briefly about kayak fit. So it's perfectly okay to jump into a kayak on dry land. It's just important to make sure there are no sharp rocks underneath. When we adjust our foot pegs, our pedals to control the rudder, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to put our feet on the pedals, but we want our knees pressed into the sides of the boat, because that gives us really good control over the rock and the stability of the boat. You don't want to be flopping around with a lot of space in here. You want to be quite snug into your boat. So I'm going to go in here and just adjust these foot pegs to work for me. And all boats differ, but they're usually very easy to adjust. And there we go. My feet are on the pedals, and I'm going to use this control here is how you lift the kayak. This control here is how you bring the rudder up and down. And I'm just going to see if I can get it. Oh, there we go. Oh, somewhere in there. And so if I press the right pedal forward, we see the rudder turning, and the left one forward, we see the rudder turning the other way. And so that's what gives me my steerage. Okay, rudder up. Okay, let me know when you're ready. I'm on a roll here. Okay, so we've got our kayak. We've run down what we need to have a look at before we launch to make sure it's in good shape. Now we've got some other bits of kit. Obviously, you're not going to go very far in your kayak without one of these, which is a paddle. Again, these come in many different sizes, shapes, styles. Most of them, almost all of them, are able to be broken in two, which is great for storage and traveling with them. Really, the key thing to know about a paddle, or to look for in a paddle, is the size, right? So generally speaking, this one's a perfect size for me. I should be able to just get my fingertips over the top of the paddle blade with my arm outstretched like that. Some of them offer some adjustment, but you also just get different lengths of paddles. So we need one of these. We want to make sure where the two pieces connect is nice and solid. This one here, I'm going to bring it in for a close-up. This one here has a few different positions that you can put the paddle in. So if we twist it there, it's feathered. Now this is getting a little technical, but by feathering the paddle, you take the work out of your wrists, because as I take my stroke, the paddle is naturally making the adjustment for me, so from side to side. We'll go into that more at another point. Yeah. So, whenever we go out on the water, we don't just take one paddle, we take two paddles, and we take a spare. Okay, and that's, fairly obvious. If you break one paddle and that's all you got, well, there's a famous expression that you'd be up creek without a paddle. You'll have to bleep that out too. And the spare generally is stowed on the front of the kayak. This one has some nice bungees here. It would be nice if it had a bit of bungee here too, But I think if I was heading out today, I'd rig a system for having my spare paddle within reach of the cockpit. So if the worst happened and I did happen to lose my primary paddle, I would be able to reach my spare whilst I was in the boat. You see a lot of people paddling with these spare paddles way forward on their kayak, and obviously that's not much use if you lose your paddle when you're on the water. So bear that in mind. Yeah, if we were going out on the ocean, Transport Canada requires us to carry a variety of equipment. I have a few bits of it here today, but what I don't have is a VHF marine radio. This is what we use if we need to call for help. We can contact the Coast Guard on our VHF radio, or other boat or other marine traffic if we get into difficulty out there. So you need to carry a VHF radio. You also need to carry a flare kit. Flares are essentially small fireworks, and again used for attracting attention in the worst case scenario, and we're hoping to avoid that, but they are required to be carried if you're going out on the ocean. The other thing that I don't have with me but I always carry is a tow line, so that I could toss a rope to another boat to pull me out of trouble or tow me to a safe spot. Along with this, Transport Canada requires you to have a bailing device, and a bailing device is something you can use to empty your boat should it fill with water. These can take many forms. I think even just as the humble yogurt container I should say, works as a bailing device, but I have a bilge pump. So if I fill my boat with water and I take a swim but I get back in, I can actually pump out any water that's in the boat. In fact, I can give you a better demonstration here. This will be fun, look. And you can see that that's a pretty effective way of emptying your boat of any water. What else does Transport Canada require? A suitable or approved PFD. Now PFD, the P is it's a personal flotation device, okay? And this is probably the most important thing in many ways, that most important piece of kit. Yeah, you should never go out on the water without one of these under no circumstances. It's very easy to think that, you know, it's a warm sunny day, oh, I don't need one of these, I can just take a swim, but you need one of these on. And if you're going to wear it, it needs to be properly adjusted. Now, this is a good fit on me. Obviously, I'm wearing quite a few layers today because it's cold, which I wouldn't normally be, but the same rules apply. I'm going to slip it on, zip it up all the way to the top. There's a little buckle here underneath the zip that goes together, and then I've got a whole host of straps here that I can cinch this thing nice and tight, and it should be snug enough that if you fall in the water and the buoyancy of the PFD sort of kicks in, it shouldn't ride up too far. You shouldn't find yourself with this thing up above your ears. So yeah, snug the straps up. You want to still be able to do some breathing, just a little bit. That's important, but snug it up so that it doesn't float up above your ears if you end up in the water. Okay, so the last bit of gear that I'm going to talk about is the spray skirt. Now, what I'm wearing today, we're going to go over what you wear when you go paddling at a later date. But what I'm wearing actually today on my upper body is not too unrealistic. I've got some warm layers underneath a waterproof, windproof jacket. Your spray skirt is going to go on before or after your PFD. It actually doesn't matter, but I'll show you here. This one's cinched up pretty good. Again, something that has generally a lot of adjustment. You can step into it or you can pull this down over your head. I'm going to step into it. Here we go. Try not to fall over in the process. And then this comes all the way up And you can see this toggle here. I'm going to pull that up so it sits just under my PFD, around about the height of my belly button, my navel there. And I'm going to cinch it up. And I will show you how this is going to be used in just a second. But while I'm getting ready to go out on the water, I usually find a place on the PFD, even if it's just one of these little toggles, to hook that strap so I don't trip over it while I make my final preparations. See, that didn't work. But there'll be somewhere here where you can, I'm going to try that again. This is very technical. There we go. So I don't trip over it while I'm making my final preparations to launch the boat. Okay. Okay, so we're going to do a quick recap of what we've just talked about there. We're heading out for a paddling excursion, so we need a kayak to start with. We need to check that it's in good shape, so we make sure that the hatches and the hatch covers are in good condition and they seal properly. We need to check the rudder and the rudder cables to make sure that they work. We're going to hop into the kayak and we're going to fit the foot pegs to us. We're going to customize the fit to make sure that we can work the rudder, and that's going to work for us when we're on the water. We're going to make sure we've got a paddle that is the right size, good and solid at the connection there. We're going to make sure we've got a spare paddle. We're going to make sure we've got some way of bailing the boat, removing the water from it. We're going to have a good snug fitting PFD, a spray skirt, and if we're going out on the ocean, we're going to bring a VHF, we're going to bring flares, and we're going to bring a tow rope. And then we're going to grab some friends and we're going to go.
Mount Moresby Adventure Camp!
Badly, but I'm going to do it. That was actually, oh! You better just check that when we get there.